have a hard stop at 6, so I do apologize because I gotta have enough time to get out. The flight I was telling you about is coming in 10 minutes early, so I gotta. Anyways, Mike Montgomery, holy crap! I haven't seen you in literally since you graduated in maybe a year after. I don't know. 05.
Yeah, it's been about 16, 17 years.
Oh my gosh, man! How are you?
Good. Yeah, it's great to see you. And I occasionally see things on social media, and you're obviously running all the time and fit and doing really well. So it's always good to see those updates.
It's not showing. I mean, I'm wearing a shirt. Yeah, it doesn't show because, man, I feel like I'm pounding the pavement and beating my body. It is just deteriorating at a rapid pace right now. Lower back rubs.
I'm usually good for about 3 miles. I usually jog 3 miles, maybe twice a week, 2 or 3 times a week, and it's the right distance. Longer than that, I start to get aches and pains and things. I'm getting older, but it feels good to kind of put it in overdrive and just run, kind of where it's uncomfortable.
I get it. Man, you look great. Your hair has stuck with you. I remember you having a great top of hair and thick and I don't know, age is not doing well for me. So, but overall, you're looking good. So,
thank you.
Mike, been 16 years. Where are you at? What's going on? Tell us a little bit about your just general life going on right now.
Yeah, I live in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. I'm married to my wife Kate, who some of the Sigat brothers know. My wife Kate also went to Utah State. We have 3 kids: a boy that's 13, a daughter that's 9, and a second daughter that's 4.
Fantastic. So you're in the Bay Area, and you've been there for quite some time. Basically
since I graduated from Utah State.
You left and didn't look back twice.
Yeah, I left for. I went the route that looking back, most of our brothers didn't take the business route, but started with a firm that I wanted to work for, and led to other opportunities, and kind of kept me in this area where there's a lot of interesting companies to work with, but haven't looked back since. And we visit friends back in Utah and family and whatnot, but have always stayed out here.
Okay, so you remind me, where are you from? I know Kate's from Kaysville.
Yeah, I grew up in Boise, in Idaho.
That's right. You're an Idaho boy. Very good. So then, give us some of the undergrads, alumni that haven't seen you in ages, like myself. Give us a rundown of how you ended up at Utah State.
Yeah. So I was in high school, really just applied to 2 schools, applied to BYU and Utah State. And I'm looking off to the side here because I'm trying to drum up memories of lifetimes ago. But I applied to both. Didn't get into BYU, and half my friends went to BYU, half my friends went to Utah State. And so I thought I was going to get in, didn't get in, thought I had good enough grades, and thought I had sort of all the right prereqs. But
it's all right. If you sin a little bit, I won't judge you. Get it?
I won't respond to that question. I won't respond to that comment. But a lot of my good friends from high school got an apartment at Utah State, and so thought that would be a blast. And we went out there together and had a really good time.
Very good. Yeah, I do remember. Yeah, because you talk about the Smurf turf. You were always the one. Whenever we played Boise, that you were always the one cheering Boise on a little bit.
I was neutral. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Very good. So, going to Utah State, you're an accountant now. So you're more than just an accountant here. I guess, what's your formal title?
Formal title is managing partner and CEO.
Okay. Of an accounting firm?
Yeah, it's kind of broader, and we can go into this. I've watched a couple of the interviews with some of the brothers, and I know you'll probably want to know a little bit more about what I'm up to. Yeah. But it's kind of different from what you normally think of accounting. Accounting is kind of typically defined as audit and tax services provided for companies. We don't do any tax. We don't do any audit. We do just advisory services for clients. And so it's a little bit broader than kind of what you normally see. And they're the types of services that a lot of people don't really correlate with accounting per se.
Okay. Very cool. So you graduated with economics and finance, and then later on got an MBA. But did you know you wanted to go into finance coming from high school? Or where did that come from?
Yeah, it's another good question. I always thought I would probably go into law, and I thought about doing tax law. That's kind of what I had planned on doing. And my uncle actually said, look, rather than kind of going that route directly, why don't you go and work in accounting for a little bit and just see what you like and get a little bit of experience, save a little bit of money. And then if you want to, you'll have some good experience to go to law school, especially tax law, and go into tax law. And so I thought, well, it's actually really good advice. And so I said, I'm going to go work for at least a couple of years and then figure it out. And, got into it and said, wow, I actually like this. It fits my personality well. I enjoy working with companies. I don't necessarily want to go back to school right now, and kind of started down that path.
Very cool. Sherman, is it who's the accounting professor at Utah State?
Yeah, oh gosh, I couldn't even remember now.
Well, I was going to say, I do remember Utah because the brothers early on, and I want to say you were part of that group that were like, oh, if you just talk about the Final Four basketball, like that's the way to get A's in this one accounting professor. Sherman?
I think that sounds right. It's like a lifetime ago, but I think that sounds. I do remember something about the college basketball, and
next thing I know, like all the SIG-ups that were in the accounting all got A's because it's like once you knew the secret, everybody was able to just schmooze their way to get an A.
Yeah,
it's very very little knowledge, but more about the art of bribing the professor, which was his sweet spot of the NCAA basketball. Okay, so you have gone on. Let me talk a little bit about SIG-UP because do you remember how you joined SIG-UP? Who brought you in? Because you were in with. Well, I'm going to just bring this up right now. If you remember your group, share screen. This might. Where'd it go? Right there. Does this jog any memories?
Oh boy, what pictures are you going to bring up? Oh boy. Oh, that's fantastic.
So
yeah, Brandon Lang, Nate.
We were all the same
Nick.
Class.
Yeah. Oh, this is awesome to see.
0405.
0405, and I think this was
still very thick hair 16 years ago. I think I'm catching up with Tag when it comes to the hair, but.
Yeah, I think we were the second group or the second year. I'm trying to remember, but there was kind of the first group, and then there was the second group, and so kind of coming back to it, I went to Utah State for a year and then left on a mission for the careful how I say it, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and on my mission, Josh Cook and I were mission companions, and so I was there for maybe 6 months or 9 months before he got there. And so we were companions, and then both came back. And then ended up renting a house together in Logan. And that's kind of where I think I first heard about it a little bit. And then I had other just kind of friends that I would meet along the way, and went and played poker with some of the brothers and got to know people. And, really that's kind of how it all started. And then I went and met Zach, and I met Jared, and just met and yourself. A lot of people in the that were either thinking about becoming SIG-UPs or were already SIG-UPs, and was just really impressed with the group.
Yeah. So Zach brought that up the last time when I was interviewing him. Poker tournaments, or not just tournaments. You were part of that. There was about 8 of us. Paid for our first one semester of rent through poker antics, especially against the Chi Omegas at the time. Basement poker games. I wish I had a pitcher. I don't, unfortunately, but lots of hours.
Yeah, and I don't think many of our brothers even knew this, but when I was a freshman, I had a really good friend of mine rush Sigma Chi, and I got invited to a lot of the parties, and they'd asked me if I was interested in rushing, and I really, really fun group of guys, and they had a lot of really fun parties, and obviously social on campus, and knew a lot of people. It just didn't feel right to me, and I had other plans and was planning on spending 2 years of my life in most likely a foreign country, and so I just kind of edged away. And my friend still rushed, and he was a Sigma Chi, and so still had that correlation. And so coming back after the mission and getting to know people, and it seemed like it was a good opportunity to kind of have one foot in and be part of that and have that opportunity, but also having a group of guys that had certain standards and certain ethics that all thought alike, which is what I really liked. And it felt comfortable from that. I felt like I wasn't going to be pressured to do things that weren't aligned with my moral compass, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's something with I think there's hesitancy in all of us, because it's like Greeks had their stereotype and fraternity specifically. And I coming from an LDS background, that was the same thing. I didn't want to necessarily get caught off guard and get associated. And so it was crucial to find those individuals who were like, this fraternity is our fraternity. We're going to be different. We're going to hold the bar up here, opposed to what the standard quota is.
Yeah. I was sorry. I was going to say real quick too.
No.
The other thing too is that I was also interested in leadership opportunities, and a lot of the brothers that I went through the program with were active in student leadership, yourself included, and others, as part of the Utah State leadership programs. And I thought that was a good way to network with people that were also interested in leadership opportunities and all thought alike. Anyway, that was the other side too, is I felt like, hey, it's good to associate with people that are going places and doing things and will be future leaders of the university and, business communities, et cetera, later on in their career.
Absolutely. And I'm going to, we'll pivot back to that, because I want to ask on you and networking, because obviously in your line of work, networking plays a big role. But we're going to pivot. I'm going to share one more little image here, and you're going to tell me if you can remember. And this is your wife might be appreciative of this picture.
Oh,
I don't know if this is like one of the first dates. I know Nate's wife was first date through SIGEP. I don't know if you and Kate was first dating through SIGEP.
I need to get a copy of this. I mentioned to her that I was going to come on and talk to you on the interview and podcast, but I think this must have been, there was a formal dance that we did and dinner, and I was asking her if she remembered, and she couldn't remember. And I said, no, I'm certain there was, and I'll bring this up with Oz when I talk to him. But this was probably one of my favorite memories of just having all the guys come together, having like a formal date, but also fun, and people could be themselves and just have a good time.
Yeah. So this was homecoming in 2004.
Okay, so this was a school dance, but I think all the SIGEPs came.
We did it as
together.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Okay,
if I remember correctly, I think this is Hamilton's. This is like when it was brand new, just opened, best steak in town.
Okay, so to Kate's credit, she said that was homecoming. I said no, it was a specific SIGEP event that I remember. She says no, it was homecoming.
and you know what? To be honest, I actually might have the group photo, some actually paper copy, because we did go as SIGEPs. But it wasn't a formal SIGEP event, but it was homecoming. So
yeah, no, good pictures.
Very good. Okay, so let's talk about with SIGEP. I'm going to bring this in with your current position and what you do. Obviously within the fraternity, and you brought this up, like getting to know guys and getting out of that comfort zone and just interacting with people you won't normally do. Can you share with me or anybody just SIGEP, how did that play a role in your life and moving forward as far as that group camaraderie, or do you see any benefits in your life from that?
Yeah, I think it's hard. It's hard to say. It's hard to kind of tag a specific event or outcome to SIGEP in my life. There could be a case where somebody meets a brother and then they go into business together, or there's some like really specific event. But I do think what it showed me was it really kind of forced me to stick my neck out and to, try and get involved with activities around campus, and whether that was just supporting. I remember, Josh was my roommate at the time, but I remember supporting him when he was running for student body president at Utah State. And I just remember all of us coming together and working as a team and trying to help people that we cared about, but that we also shared something special with, trying to achieve an outcome. So I think that there was a lot of those types of memories and events where that kind of propelled me to be more confident in myself. I think and you probably remember, but I think I was probably one of the more probably quiet, SIG-ups in terms of just people's personalities and what they did. But I was always kind of more on the quiet side. And I felt like this is a good opportunity to get out there, meet more people, expand my network, et cetera.
I'd say you're quiet up until I do remember arguments between, I want to say it was Jared Westbrook and you. Granted, I know not Brian Dewey, Scott Dewey and Jared Westbrook were fighting all the time, but I want to say you were also that counter argument point, and this is where your potential pre-law would come into play because he loved the debate.
Yeah,
I remember
once I get to know people and I feel comfortable, then it's then I'm happy to jump in and throw a few punches.
But yeah, overall, you were a little on the quieter side. But I do remember it was in like a business meeting, and you and Jared Westbrook were just kind of arguing, and it was just arguing for argument's sake.
Oh, if it was related to business, then for sure I jumped in and had conversations about that. Jared's an attorney, so I thought I should voice my opinion as a business person.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive a little bit into your business realm. You went from, because you jumped right into California. You just started progressing. So for any undergrads, that's kind of part of this is I want the undergrads to be able to glean information. Right? If I want to go into not per se accounting, but more your expertise and working with big firms and working in that realm, walk me through the next 16 years and how you got to where you're at, and maybe some of those steps you were good, some of the steps were bad, learning experiences through that.
Okay. So kind of, I haven't thought about this forever, but okay. So I graduated in 2005 from Utah State. I think it was probably the spring of 2005. My wife, Kate, and I got married in 2004. So pretty quickly before, it was probably a matter of months or within the same year, but in 2004. And then shortly after that, started working with a firm called KPMG. They're one of what they call the Big Four accounting firms. So for those that actually take accounting classes or that are majoring in accounting, you probably hear that term, Big Four accounting firms. Started in the external audit practice there, and really started to get an idea and understanding of how big tech companies work. And as an external auditor, you really learn not only the financial accounting aspects of what a company does, but you learn their processes, how they run the business, everything from sales to HR to operations to kind of everything, to the finance organization, kind of everything. And you're required to get an understanding of that. It's different. Like if you were to talk to a VP of sales, they'll say, well, I understand how a sales process works a lot better than you do. And that's very true. But you have a really good general understanding of how different processes work, which was very interesting to me. So I did external auditing with KPMG for 4 years, I think. And then I was selected to go on an international rotation program with the firm. And they sent me to Sao Paulo, Brazil. Wow. which was a really interesting experience. I'd served, back to the mission discussion, I'd served in Buenos Aires, Argentina for 2 years. And they gave me an option of a few different places that I could go and do this international rotation. And at the time I was really interested in Brazil, in international business. And so, put my name in for Brazil. And immediately within a couple of days, partners from Brazil called and said, we'd love to have Mike come. And so shortly after that, we got a visa in place and everything. And then I went and did that. Really good experience, a lot of fun, learned a lot, learned Portuguese when I was there, and learned it pretty quickly because I spoke Spanish fluently, and just learned a lot about everything from, living with a spouse internationally. Our son, Lewis, was, I think, 2 at the time, a year and a half or 2 years old. He was pretty young. Okay. So learned a lot from that, and then came back and really decided that I wanted to go to business school, and thought I either want to do management consulting, maybe investment banking, but something that was kind of outside of accounting and more kind of hardcore business focused. So studied for the GMAT, did well on the GMAT, applied for 2 or 3 programs. I applied for Wharton's international MBA program with the Portuguese track, Brazilian Portuguese track. Didn't get into that. I applied to Columbia. I also didn't get into Columbia, and I applied to Haas, and I got to Haas Berkeley's program. So ended up going to Haas Business School, which was a really interesting experience, coming from a very conservative kind of university in Utah State, going to Haas and hearing professors and kind of their viewpoints on life and what I think life should mean for myself, and what the United States should be doing as a country. And it was just a very different experience, but learned a lot and met a lot of really, really interesting people. And during that program is when I had a few options. It was either, I talked to recruiters at Goldman, for example, for the banking track. I had spoken with several consulting firms on opportunities there. And I just talked to some of the professors that I had at the Haas Business School. One, for example, was a retired Bain consulting partner that was a really interesting person to talk to, and had tons of experience, life experience, business experience, et cetera. So in talking to him and some other folks there, what I really gleaned was that obviously I have an accounting background, and it's really kind of a hard skill set that's hard to acquire, that takes a long time to acquire, to be really proficient and really good at it. B, as far as accountants go, I had a knack for talking to people and being able to use soft skills to explain things well in terms that they could understand. And I also had a real desire to build something. And so his idea was, hey, the accounting advisory or consulting space is a really disaggregated space. There's a lot of players out there, but outside the really big firms, there's a really huge opportunity out there. And so that's kind of where it started. Was I'd worked for another firm for a really short period of time as I was starting the MBA program, and then left that, and then really kind of jumped into this and founded the firm. Gosh, it's probably been 9 years ago now, almost a decade ago, but and then have just been building it ever since.
So coming out of coming out of school, getting a little bit more experience under your belt, you just said, I want to be on my own and just start your own firm. It's especially in the San Francisco area. I'm coming from an outside perspective. You just hear about the business and the amount of money, the cutthroat, it's big business over there.
It was, and it was hard. I was pretty, just in terms of years and years of experience, I was pretty young. I was probably early 30s, 31, 32 maybe. And I was really young. And there was a lot of people that I considered to be mentors that said, don't do it. You're making a mistake. Why did you go to MBA school? All sorts of things that people said. I had potential clients right in the beginning. I remember meeting with the CFO, and we were going to help this company with their IPO and help them go public. And I remember distinctly in this meeting with him going in, and I probably had a cheap, sport coat on and some slacks, and like you said, my hair all whipped up. And I remember him saying, "You're the managing partner of Effectus Group." I could just hear like the doubting in his voice because of how young I looked. But I pitched really well, and I explained to him how we were going to do the project and why we were the right firm, and we ended up getting the project. And that was just kind of one of many that happened. But that was really, I think it was maybe Bryce you were talking to, one of our brothers earlier on. But really, it's and this too from your business pursuits. But it's one of those things where you really can't let discouragement get you down, and you have to keep pushing through, and you have to understand that going into it. And so I knew, I had already calculated, I'm going to probably fail half the time just in terms of how things go. But I'm already looking forward to that, and I'm already looking forward to that process and making this happen. So put my head down and just started running.
Dang. Okay, so then I guess today, give us a quick synopsis. Effectus Group is your company as a founding and managing partner. How's the last decade been? Are you successful? Would you define you as you feel comfortable with your job right now?
Yeah, I feel I probably work more than I should, but feel comfortable otherwise. But we've grown quite a bit. I brought on a couple of other partners along the way, and to help manage and run the business and do sales and whatnot. But we're about probably between 150 and 160 employees at this point.
Wow.
And probably the major, yeah, thank you. Probably the major, New York, several locations on the East Coast, Austin, Southern California, LA, San Diego, Seattle, three different offices in the Bay Area. Actually, I have an office in Lehigh, Utah. So out by a lot of folks out in Utah. But so it's kind of the result of 10 years of just absolutely grinding it out 6 to 7 days a week. 14 to 16-hour days of just rinse and repeat.
Wow. Dude, that's some determination. I did not know. Obviously, I have 16 years. I have no idea. I just knew you were kind of doing some finance thing. Honestly, it was like doing accounting somewhere in California. You're blowing my mind. Holy crap!
I'm maybe different from some of the other SIGEPs that we went through the process with, but I'm probably a little bit more private in my personal life than a lot of folks. I don't really keep much of a social media page, and I don't post a lot. It's just kind of my nature. But and I don't LinkedIn. It's more about congratulating our team members on projects that they've done and things like that. But yeah, it's been a good experience.
Good. Yeah. And honestly, this is for brothers, but it's also, I do want you to toot your own horn, because what you've built sounds phenomenal. It's something to especially as an entrepreneur myself, like the little details play such a big role to get to where you're at, I would say, at a 10-year mark, and to have a presence, more employees. Everything I've learned, more employees is more problems. That's kind of the reality. It's the work's the easy part. The employees tend to be the hard part.
Yeah, I think I would qualify that slightly to say that more employees without the right processes is a huge problem. But I think as you get better at what you do, you'll learn how to implement different processes to help streamline that. And once you do that, it's more of a bearable situation, and you can start to scale more and more. But I think without those processes in place, more employees is a disaster.
Interesting. No, that's some sage words. Regarding you and your pathway. So if an undergrad wants to go in to, like I said, more of the accounting, what are you guys specialize in? I saw IPOs. What is it as far as your firm? You say you kind of have this niche.
Yeah. So we have 5 different practices at the firm, and these are the 5 areas that we feel like we are experts in our field, and that we excel kind of above and beyond any of our competitors. Helping companies through capital market transactions. Traditional IPOs is by far the number one kind of, most well-known transaction that's out there. And so we'll go in and help a company. There's a lot of like financial processes that have to be implemented. There's obviously the actual S1 preparation process that happens. There's sometimes companies need help getting just through an audit itself. And so we're not the auditors, but we're on the flip side of that coin. And we're basically kind of holding their hand through an audit and meeting with their external auditors to talk to them about what changes need to be made to financials, et cetera. Okay. So there's quite a bit that goes into that process. That's probably one of our larger, if not our largest practice. There's also reverse mergers. There's, you probably heard this in the news, but what they call SPAC transactions were also really, really big. And we did some of the largest SPAC transactions in the world, over the past couple of years. So
define that. No, it's over my head. Define that a little bit.
So what the way that it works is this, and this is like 1,000-foot, explanation, but a bunch of investors, or sponsors come together, and they pool funds, and they open an entity that's basically like an investment fund or an investment trust in this entity. And then they go out and they try and raise money through an IPO, and they issue shares. And they raise a bunch of capital that way, with the idea that they don't have a business currently, but they're going to go out and acquire a business.
Okay. So in my world, the Amazon e-commerce, there's aggregators that are just buying small companies, but it's all VC or an investment group that has just pooled a bunch of money. But they could come to you guys and be like, "Okay, we want to make this legit, and we want to get more capital through IPO."
So
And that could be done even before the company exists.
Yeah, so that's the first half of it. So it's basically like a pool of funds that they pull together. And then they hire attorneys, they draft registration statements, et cetera, and then they go out and they do an IPO, and they go out and talk to institutional investors and just big time investors, and they pull in $100 million, let's say, with the promise that they will go out and they'll find a target company to acquire, usually a private company, not a public company. And if they don't find that target company, usually within 2 years, all the investors can redeem the cash they put into this investment trust. And so what happens is these SPAC investors or the sponsors will say, well, great, we know this XYZ industry really well. We're going to go out and find an undervalued company in that industry and acquire that company. What really happens is that they go out, they actually do a business combination, they acquire the company. That company essentially kind of reverse merges into the public company itself. And so they're now immediately they're a public company with a whole bunch of cash, and they don't have to go through the traditional IPO process of, prepping documents for months and months and months and months. It does take a lot of time. It does take a lot of effort, but it's just a different way of doing what we kind of call the traditional IPO.
Fascinating. Yeah. From my knowledge, it's just IPOs like this big level. If you could hit IPO, you get some just good flowing cash outside of a VC, but you're saying there could be VCs that reverse it and kind of go in the back door by. Yeah. With IPOs, is there companies? Is this an everyday thing for IPOs? Is this a pretty common? I guess what? And let me rephrase that. At what level could a company go public?
Yeah, great question. Historically, for tech companies, $100 million in recurring revenue was kind of the benchmark for a tech company to go public. During the last probably 5 to 10 years, I think that came down a little bit, and companies were going out a little bit earlier than $100 million of annual revenue or recurring revenue. So that's for tech companies. We work a lot with life science companies as well. And life science companies are different because a lot of times they'll go public before they even have a product, right? So they might be in clinical trials or whatever, but they don't really have any kind of normal revenue from customers at that point. So that's in an earlier stage.
Would this be deemed like LifeVantage or New Skin or are those kind of life sciences?
No, usually they could be for sure. But usually companies that are like biotech companies that, it might be like a genome company, or it might be somebody that is doing research and developing a drug for, different types of cancer, or, could be like a dermatology product. It could be any number of different,
like Theranos.
Like a Theranos. That's right. That's right. They weren't our client. I can confidently say that. So
good. No, and that. Well, so you're talking about these things, and makes my mind go towards that Theranos. Like they basically duped. They didn't have a product, but you're saying, companies can start and go public without the hard evidence or without that reoccurring revenue, which is like what normal businesses have to show valuation.
And usually it's because life science companies, whether they're biotech or whichever industry they're in, they usually have a lot more product development that has to happen. And so they either have to go, additional rounds of private company fundraising, like a later round, like a Series C, Series D, Series E, or they can access the capital markets, which usually means that their valuations are higher. I think that's traditionally what it's meant. I think that ebbs and flows depending on the economy, but versus tech companies where there's not a lot of appetite from investment bankers unless the company has like a really strong business model with recurring revenue. And at some point in the future, sometimes it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years, sometimes 10 years down the road, they have, future cash flows that are anticipated. And at some point they'll be cash flow positive and start to make money for shareholders.
Fascinating. How much do you get involved in the day-to-day now? Obviously, they're managing partner. You've got a bunch of people all over. Do you worry about certain cases? Do you get involved in certain cases, or just like, you guys do your job, I'm going to make sure everybody's doing their job, and kind of less of that?
A lot of the latter, but I still get involved in certain projects, and it kind of depends on the relationships at play, and depends on how high profile a transaction is, and there's a lot of different factors to that. But I know a lot of managing partners in a similar case where they just don't get involved on any client projects or anything going forward. I feel like that's a disservice. I'm probably the one, the CEO kind of came about because our team said we need a CEO of this company, and not that I really wanted the title CEO per se, but it just kind of came about. But I'm not sure that you'd find another CEO in our industry that can actually do the projects like I can do the projects, actually get involved on projects, right? Most of them are very good at managing people, managing processes, but most don't really understand A to Z how the projects are done, which is kind of what helped set me apart a little bit, is that I was so strong on that side of the coin that like I could actually do the projects themselves and speak to clients about it and then actually execute, but also manage a team that's doing it and then manage many teams that are doing it. And that's kind of how success built over time.
So here's a new question for you. What grinds your gears about your industry? What just drives you nuts, and yet it's part of the industry and it's part of what you do?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question. Not a lot grinds my gears per se, but I do think that there's actually, okay, maybe this is one that grinds my gears, is when people ask me if I'm busy because it's tax season. I get that one all the time from people. You must be busy because it's tax season. It's like, well, I don't really do taxes, and I don't even know that much about taxes, really. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people that don't don't know a lot about the different types of accounting services that are out there and what different accounting firms do. And it's pretty broad. It's everything
one of those.
Yeah, it's everything from, like we talked about, taxes to strategy. Some of the firms have strategy consulting groups. Some of them have investment banking groups. It can be pretty broad for the larger firms at this point. So, but actually grinding my gears, gosh, I don't let much get to me. I'm not sure that you stumped me with that question, Oz. I'm not sure at this point. Maybe I'll come back to that question as I think about it.
Okay. Fair enough. So you're loving it. You're just enjoying doing what you're doing.
Yeah, I like it. I enjoy it. It kind of brings the best of both worlds together. I really enjoy accounting. I enjoy numbers. I enjoy the professional aspect of it. I also enjoy running a business, and I enjoy the challenges that brings. I enjoy helping others be successful. We probably have, a number of folks that will become partners at the firm at some point, in the coming years and in the short term. And so it's exciting to see them join as maybe a manager, and over a number of years develop as professionals, become very proficient at what they do, and then also become partners at the firm.
Okay. That's cool. What is one of the best things? Give me out of the last 10 years, what's the highlight of this company? Like that, as far as that you can divulge, one of the things you went home and you celebrated because it was just a home run.
Yeah, let me think about that one for a second. Probably a really interesting one was I went to go play in a golf tournament with just a number of partners from all the different Big Four accounting firms. And there was I won't say which company it was, but it's an extremely well-known company that's on CNBC News and on their website all day, every day. They talk about it constantly, but it's a client of ours. And I went to this golf tournament, and all these different partners were talking about this company, about this project. And it's a project that we pitched for really, really well. I thought we did a fantastic job. Our team prepped really well for it. And we ended up winning the project, and they went with us instead of these bigger firms. And people were talking about it there. And then they started asking about it and saying, how on earth did you pull that off? And, it just seemed like it was, they're firms that do, they have 20,000 people or whatever they have, and they have, endless resources. And that was kind of a plus one for us to say, hey, it doesn't really matter that, we don't have that same, brand recognition that you do across the entire world. We did a great job pitching for it. We're obviously qualified. We prepped extremely well. We invested the time. We put in the effort, and we ended up winning, that proposal. And it just being in that situation where everybody kind of descended on me, was asking me the same questions, like, "Hey, how did you guys win this? We thought we had this." It was a good experience overall.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Mike, where are you going with this? Are you retiring with this? Will you work until you die, or in 10 years, where do you see yourself?
I think, that's a good question. I'm not sure at this point. I enjoy what I'm doing. I think that there will probably be over time a succession plan in place for other partners to help kind of manage things and run things. And at some point, I probably need to slow down a little bit from what I'm doing right now. I don't know that I can keep this pace for 10 or 15 more years, but I think it over time that'll probably happen naturally. I'm starting to travel more again for coming out of the whole pandemic situation, and East Coast, West Coast travel and all over the country it's not easy to do, and especially when you have little ones and soccer games on Saturdays, and it's not always easy to do. So, but I think that probably over the coming years, as we continue to grow, it'll be probably more manageable. And who knows? I don't plan to early retire per se, but I also don't plan to, I probably plan like a normal retirement age, I guess.
All right. Well, is there anything else in the back of your mind that you're like, I want to go on and do this. I want to start this company. You're good. You're dedicated to Effectus.
Yeah. And we have some other, as a firm, we have some other pursuits and investments and things that we've been working on. And so sometimes it's kind of easier to do it within the same company that you control, versus trying to do it outside of the company. And there's a lot of influence that you have on other software companies and other outside parties. But there are other opportunities that are out there. For example, we get a lot of really good introductions to tech companies that you see all the time in the news and hear about, and developers and people that are out there developing interesting products. And so there's some investment opportunities that we've taken that I think will probably yield pretty good valuations down the road.
That's cool.
But I don't hang my hat on those, because it's kind of like, it's like back to our poker days of SIGAP. You're sitting at the table and you say, I hope I get 2 aces, but you just kind of play the cards you get.
Yeah. You play the hand and you don't know what's going on the river. But time will tell. That's neat. So you're kind of utilizing the Effectus Group as this additional opportunity for expansion and get it dabbling in other things, keep it relevant.
Yeah, I think we've set a goal to hit 300 head count here shortly, and have a plan in place to do that. And when I actually set out on day one, I had a goal to grow the team to 150 people within 5 years and 300 people within 10 years. That was kind of what my plan was. And I had it all kind of mapped out, and, different goals on how to get there. And, so we're probably somewhere a little over 150 now after about 9 years. So it kind of fell short of the 10-year, probably both goals, but of the 10-year goal. And so we kind of doubled down again to say, hey, we feel like we have really good momentum now. Let's double down and hit that 300 mark.
But it's also not about the number. If you're keeping effective bookkeeping, right? It's like money out doesn't always mean money in. It's juggling those. Yeah,
and maybe back to okay, so maybe coming back to your question on what grinds my gears. There are firms out there that aren't focused on delivering expertise to clients. They're focused on numbers, and they're just going out and hiring and trying to grow teams and therefore grow business, but they're not qualified to do what they do. And they see it's a lot of times when non-accountants try and start businesses like this, they don't really understand what they're doing per se. They just think, hey, someone has an accounting degree, they must know how to do, everything from A to Z that relates to accounting. And it's like, that's actually really not the case. There's really specific expertise for a specific area. And if you're good at that, you'll do really well. But if you're not good at that, it's kind of a fly-by-night situation, right? So there are firms in our industry that are like that right now. And, it's interesting to talk to their founders and their team members. And I'm always very nice and cordial about it. But underneath, I know exactly what's going on.
Yeah. It's your world, so you understand, get it. I wanted to ask what do you like to do in your spare time? Because you say you work a lot. You keep emphasizing you got to relax. You have a low.
I didn't mean to emphasize that. Hopefully I didn't.
No, I hope you can kind of balance a little bit, but overall, it's like obviously you got to find some relief on and off.
Yeah, I for me, it's a lot of family time and a lot of it's work and family are kind of the two drivers of what I do. But I do play golf in my spare time, and I've been teaching my 9-year-old daughter how to play golf, which has been a lot of fun. My 13-year-old plays football, and so try and take him over to the local high school and play football with him as much as possible. Even my wife Kate, we got her golf clubs a couple years ago. She hasn't really used them yet, but there's a promise of that. She'll learn how to play golf at some point. But and it's a lot of family time.
Yeah. So I've lived in St. George for 6 years now, and I just golfed for the first 2 times within the last month. So there's a start for everyone, right?
Yeah. I better be careful, or Nate Putnam will call me out and force me to come up there to play a round of golf with him and put some money on it.
I'm sure he will. Oh man. Hey, so Mike, finally, I just want to follow up. 2 things. If you have a chance to share something with the undergrads, obviously you're doing a line of work it's very focused on, big company financials, we'll say. We'll just kind of leave it general like that. If I'm somebody as an undergrad who wants to get in that industry, what would be some sage words you'd share to me?
Yeah. And by the way, if anybody wants a deeper dive on any of these topics, any of the SIGEPs or anyone, I'm happy to. I kind of kept it at a pretty high level, knowing that there's a lot of different backgrounds and different folks that might be listening. But I'm happy to go deeper. But I think you need to talk to a lot of people. That's the one thing I didn't understand as an undergrad. Well, I talked to a few people, but you really can't talk to enough people, either in the industry you want to go into, or either other industries that you're interested in. But I probably should have talked to more people in hindsight, both, partners at firms I wanted to work at, managers at firms I wanted to work at, people that are retired, people that are actively working there. And I probably would have gotten a better picture earlier on what I want, what the route I wanted to take. That's probably network and talk to a lot of people, and don't be afraid to reach out. I've talked to people all the time that ask me questions about what I do, and generally speaking, people are willing to get on a call or just talk to you for 10 or 15 minutes about what they do. And if they don't, that's fine. Just move on to the next person. And, eventually you'll hit some people that are willing to get on a call.
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm sure, again, I can't reiterate that enough, is just that communication. Open your mouth, get out of your comfort zone. Finally, your brothers, if you haven't seen in 16 years, what do you want to say to them? I know Nate ran into you in California and San Francisco, but other than that, I don't know if you've been hanging out with the brothers, Josh Cook or whomever. So what do you want to say to those brothers that might chime in?
I haven't seen most of the SIGEPs. It's been a long time. Played golf with Nate and Devin not too long ago. I guess it has been a long time now, but it was a few years ago, which doesn't seem like it was all that long ago. But miss everybody. I know I haven't kept in contact with a lot of people, but I think SIGEPs, the SIGEP experience really made my college career and really made it a lot of fun. I made a lot of friends. It really kind of helped to better define and narrow in what I wanted to get out of college, especially the last year or two of my college experience. Hopefully there's some opportunities for us to get together in the future. I know that happens occasionally, and I think it'd be great if we're able to do that again in the future. Maybe it's in Utah where a lot of people are located, but whether that's some type of a charity event or people getting together for dinner or whatever, would love to see people again. But lots of great memories, and people I haven't spoken to forever. I still think fondly about the time at SIGEP and lots of the fun activities that we did.
Absolutely. I am grateful for you giving me some of your time, because 16 years, man. I'm excited to keep that relationship more alive, and that's on me, and I'll do that. But hopefully this can become a tool where we can all communicate a little bit easier. And enjoy your time. And I'm excited to follow up in 10 years to get that 300 people and see you killing it still.
Likewise, good to hopefully we'll have a chance to catch up here in the coming years, and good to see you again, and good to be part of the network, and looking forward to seeing some of the other interviews with all the SIGEPs.
Absolutely. Mike Montgomery, love you, brother. Thank you for all that you've done. And again, we will stay in touch.
Love you too. Take care.